Well, Melbourne has bounced back this week, well over 1,000 auctions, and nationally we're looking at over 2,000 auctions this coming week. Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic joins me with all the details in just one moment. Outsourcing will dramatically improve your productivity and profitability. Sure Agents have created a staffing solution to provide great staff who can perform duties in property management, sales, marketing and administration, and at a fraction of the cost, giving you and the team more time to spend on the dollar productive tasks. With rising costs and slowing revenue, the focus must be on value for money. Check it out, sureagents.com. Welcome back. Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic joins me once again. A big week coming up, Kevin. We're over 2,000 auctions nationally this week.
Yeah, that's right. And as you mentioned in the introduction, Melbourne is the driving force after a quiet week last week with a long weekend. We've certainly seen a resurgence in the auction numbers scheduled for this week. Okay,
well, we'll bring those numbers up for you in just a moment. Before we do, let's have a look at the final weighted average clearance around the nation, coming in just a touch under 70%. Walk me through the capital cities, Kevin.
Yeah, so Sydney's clearance rate, very strong at 75.2%. As we often see, it did scale back a little from the preliminary rate, but nonetheless has ended up in a fairly solid position. We saw the Melbourne rate just dip a little last week, 66%. That obviously is affected by participation rates due to the long weekend. We saw far fewer auctions occur last week because of that, and obviously that had an impact on buyer participation as well. Some of the smaller markets did actually return fairly solid preliminary rates, but we do see a little bit of volatility with those smaller markets just because the sample size or the data set is a little bit smaller. So we actually saw Adelaide do not too badly at 56.5%. Canberra not bad at 61%, but a little way down from the preliminary figure that we reported at the weekend as those results came in. Okay, well, let's take you to the Sydney sub-regions now. Outstanding results from eastern suburbs and inner southwest, Kevin. Yeah, so in inner southwest actually leading the pack there at 86.6% from 92 auctions. Ryde coming in second at 85.4%. Again, we've seen Ryde a little bit volatile recently, but this week a very strong result. And eastern suburbs really not that far behind, and that was the second busiest of the regions with 110 auctions and a clearance rate of just a shade under 85%. Okay, to Melbourne now. The results there, a lot in the 70s, nothing in 80%, Kevin? No, that's right. But the Outer East got pretty close at the top of the pack there at 78.8%. Again, as we've said, it was a relatively quiet weekend because of the long weekend. Only 38 auctions in that sub-region. Northeast, 77.3% came in next from 45 auctions. And the inner sub-region, as we've seen the last couple of weeks, a reasonably strong result there at 67.3%. But again, relatively low activity, which we'll see really pick up this week. Well, let's have a look at what the auction numbers are like. And I said at the opening that Melbourne over 1,000 auctions, in fact 1,144. Do we class that as a Super Saturday? Oh, look, it must be pretty close. In fact, Melbourne, it may be just a shade under a Super Saturday, because Melbourne probably has a slightly higher proportion than Sydney of auctions occurring during the week, but it'll be pretty close. And it does follow a pattern that we see quite typically where when there is a holiday weekend, the weekend immediately before, you see quite a lot of activity because people thinking of that time of year maybe just bring it forwards by a week or postpone it by a week. So it's not unusual to see a really big take-up now, but we do see the market a little interrupted because we're now sort of entering a period where some states have public holidays, and then of course we've got Easter and Anzac Day, which does interrupt the rhythm of the market from now until the end of April. Yeah, so just quickly look at those numbers. Then I want to pick up on another subject with you, Kevin, before I let you go. But Sydney, 753 auctions, 1,144 in Melbourne, 99 out of Brisbane, 93 Adelaide, 26 Perth, 58 Canberra, and 11 in Tasmania. I've got to say that's a
That's a good number for Tassie, actually, 11.
It is. Look, we obviously see Tasmania as a much smaller market for auctions. 11 is as high as we've seen it for a little while. And of course, the Tasmanian market has actually been performing really quite strongly. You know, all that time through 2018, where the eastern seaboard capital cities were experiencing soft market conditions, Hobart and Tasmania were actually going quite strongly. It'd be really interesting to see how many of those actually pick up a result, because auctions is not a sort of popular mechanism of sale. Most of the activity is private treaty in Tasmania.
Yeah, we'll watch that. We'll bring you the final results, or sorry, not the final results, but the first lot of results, prelims on Monday. Kevin, without notice, I just wanted to quickly talk to you about something that's just occurred to me, and you and I were talking about coronavirus prior to coming on air here. But I just wonder with remote facilities now whether we're going to see a surge in online auctions, people bidding remotely, because there are a number of platforms now that are operating quite successfully around the world. It could be a trend that we start to see replacing both on-site and in-room auctions a little bit.
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, we've called out the possibility that online transactions is a sort of risk mitigant for the market, particularly perhaps with overseas purchases. It'll be really interesting to see how people's behaviour changes. I think as the coronavirus issue develops, we're going to see people's behaviours change. You know, it could be if you've been looking at a property that's on the market for the last month and you've got your heart set on it, you may simply, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer and step a little bit further away from the other bidders. And that may be the change that we see in the short term. But longer term, there's certainly an opportunity for technology solutions to sort of step in to fill that gap and to give confidence.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought it's going to reflect at all in the clearance rates, because if someone's keen on buying a property, they're going to buy it regardless. But it may have an impact on the crowd numbers. I guess only time will tell as we sort of go further into, what is really uncharted territory. It changes every day, Kevin.
Oh, look, it certainly does. And there are measures being taken in terms of reducing travel, reduction of attendance at seminars and large gatherings. I mean, we've seen Hollywood movies put off the premiere for 6 months or so, and possibly auctions, large gatherings may be one of those things that is affected. But from what I've seen of behaviour changes, it's a measured response, an increased focus on and awareness of hand washing, hygiene measures, people not shaking hands. I don't know whether you've done an L bump as a greeting. Actually,
I tried to the other day. It was quite awkward because the person I was doing an elbow bump with didn't quite know what I was doing. So I guess it's going to take a bit of education all around. But it really is going to be interesting to watch what happens. Good to get your take on that, Kevin. Just before we leave, once again, we'll just bring up those final clearance rates, the weighted averages around the country. Sydney, 75.2%. Melbourne, 66.1%. Brisbane, 45.2%. Adelaide, 56.5%. Perth, 44.1%. And Canberra, 61% weighted average nationally of 68.6%. Kevin, thanks for your insight today. Have a wonderful weekend, my friend, and look forward to talking to you on Monday.
Looking forward to it. Speak to you then.